welcome to the panel, defense attorney Misty Marris. Have you heard anything? There have only been a couple of objections. I think one of them was overruled, one of them was sustained. We're in the kind of quiet part of this. Anything that the defense can use so far?
Well, the defense is really going to focus on exactly what we were speaking about, which is where's the paper trail, right? Because we know that there were encrypted messages. We know that that some of these conversations were happening one-on-one. And these are the critical moments that are going to fill in the gaps for what the prosecution has already presented. So, of course, the defense is going to be pinpointing the credibility of Michael Cohen, which is going to serve as a lot of what the fodder for cross-examination.
And I'm just trying to catch up here on the document as to what's going on right now. It looks like they're continuing with some exhibits between Keith Davidson and Michael Cohen. So they're really focusing in on some of this communication regarding these payments, not just involving Karen McDougal, but ultimately soon to involve Stormy Daniels. There is an email that says, Michael, please call me at your convenience. Thanks, Keith Davidson. And Hoffinger asked, when you received this email, you called Keith Davidson. Cohen, I did. I said, great job. And the boss is very happy. And it is now resolved because of the deal that they had reached for Karen McDougal's story to be bought and essentially buried by the National Enquirer. And Hoffinger says, what's your understanding of why he reached out to you after this deal was concluded? Objection. Sustained. Hoffinger, after AMI finalized the deal and paid the money for life rights, did you speak to Pecker about Mr. Trump reimbursing? Cohen, he wanted the $150,000 back because it was too much money for him to hide from the CEO of the parent company. And he also had just laid out the $30,000 for the doorman, who we discussed. So he was putting pressure on me to speak to Trump and to get the money back. Hoffinger, was he upset about it? Cohen, very. So where do you think this testimony is taking us here, Misty?
Well, this is all so important because this is really going to serve as the basis for what the prosecution needs to prove. Remember, these NDAs on their face, they are not illegal. So we have to get into what the motivation, the reasoning, the intent was behind catching and killing these stories. That coupled with keeping Trump in the loop. And that's the piece that you see them honing in on right now. Okay, so you have these communications with Keith Davidson. Well, did you speak to Trump? What did he say about it? And that's why the conversations between Michael Cohen make Michael Cohen such a critical witness to close the loop on so many of the other issues that the prosecutors have already set the table with other witnesses. But Cohen, he's really the one that can talk about the structure of these transactions and the why. Why were they characterized that way? Why were they structured that way?
We know a lot of notes are being taken by the defense, and maybe that's not a surprise. But in a way, I'm looking at what we have so far, and I'm thinking, we know this story. This story has been told by Michael Cohen himself time and time and time again. He's done countless television interviews. He has a podcast. He wrote 2 books about it. It's all in black and white. What are they taking note of, first of all, that they didn't already know? And have you heard anything at all that says, oh, maybe this is going to go in some area that we hadn't expected before?
I haven't heard anything that would surprise me as far as what's going to come out. And to your point, it's so true. The defense knows in general, what he's going to say. The defense has so much out there in the ether to prepare for their cross-examination. But the reason they're taking notes, and I would say my pen would probably be on fire if I were at the defense table myself. The reason is they want to take exactly what he's saying and then attack it with whatever they're going to use on cross-examination specific to the testimony that the jury is hearing. You heard Mr. Cohen say XYZ. Mr. Cohen, you testified to this. What about? And then present whatever evidence they're seeking to use in their cross, whether it be a credibility issue, a document, other witness testimony. No matter what it is, they want to not just generalize. They want to attack the specifics of what comes out in his direct.
And that's a really important point. When you are thinking about cross-examining a witness, when someone tells a lie, they can generally keep the tenor of the overall lie together, the theme of it. Where they get in trouble are the details. And the details are what they're going to focus on when you talk about the small inconsistencies of Michael Cohen's story. Yes, sure. Generally speaking, I can tell consistently a lie about having fixed something for Donald Trump and what I did, and I can write a book about it, and I can keep that together on the stand. But to Misty's point, the jury is hearing very specific testimony, and regardless of whatever's been said previously, this is what counts.
But does an inconsistency have to be an inconsistency? And if he said, yes, I lied, and here's why, does a jury generally understand that? I think there's sometimes there is an inconsistency that maybe a juror can understand, like, okay, he didn't say it exactly the same way, big deal, as opposed to, this is a problem.
Well, that's dependent on how persuasive the arguments are from either side. If I am Donald Trump's attorneys, I'm going to argue this is a big deal. This is an inconsistency that actually matters and you should pay attention to. Not just that, but this other inconsistency over here and this one over here and over there. If I'm the prosecution, I'm going to say, does this change anything about what you've really heard? The fact that someone said, Misty is wearing a purple suit and the color is aubergine. Does that make a difference?
Because we're getting to something that's really good.
Yeah. Cohen is being questioned by Susan Hoffinger about, again, this issue of Trump needing to pay back David Pecker because of the $150,000 deal that David Pecker is now saying that was too much. I want to be personally reimbursed for that, related to Karen McDougal's story. And so Cohen's talking about this with David Pecker. And he says, David expressed to me that his relationship with Trump goes back many, many years. And there's a file drawer, a locked drawer, as he described it, where files that relate to Mr. Trump existed. And at that point in time, David was being considered for the position of CEO at Time Incorporated. And one of the concerns that I had, that I expressed to Mr. Trump, Cohen says, was that if he goes, there's a series of papers there that relate to you. Hoffinger, was Mr. Trump concerned about that? Cohen, yes. Hoffinger, direct attention to September of 2016. Did you record a convo with Trump regarding purchasing Karen McDougal life rights? Cohen, this was the only one I taped.
Why did you tape this one? It was so I could show it to David Pecker, and that way he would hear the conversation that he was going to be paying, him back. And I also wanted him to remain loyal to Donald Trump.
This is key. This is critical. This shows that paper trail. And it also shows, if you think about the pattern that Cohen actually experienced when he wasn't getting paid back or he didn't receive the compensation necessary to pay Stormy Daniels. So I think what the prosecution is kind of doing is laying out this mirror to show this pattern, because the pattern also links back to Trump as well.
Is there an issue, though, if Cohen's right now saying, this was the one conversation I recorded?
And
I think
also,
as a juror...
was Mr. Trump aware? No, ma'am.
And Mr. Trump wasn't aware, but I think, you know, I'm left to question, well, why was this the only one he recorded? Like, how does the prosecution explain that, Charles? And if you're the defense, you've worn both hats. Are you going to pounce on that?
Well, don't assume that this is the only one he's recorded.
Well, he just said it was.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right.
He said, why did you tape it? He says, this is the only one I taped. And she said, why did you tape this one? And he says, it was so I could show it to David Pecker, and that way he would hear the conversation that he was going to be paying, him back. I also wanted him to remain loyal to Mr. Trump.
Oh, and at this moment, Trump opens his eyes slightly to look up at the monitor where they're showing the recording and the transcript.